The morning sun peeked through the classroom windows of Pinewood Elementary School. It was a Tuesday in April, and the third-grade students of Room 14 were settling into their seats. Ms. Nancy Howard moved around the classroom with a gentle smile, helping children open their books to the right page. She loved teaching third grade. The children were old enough to be independent but still young enough to show excitement about learning. "Good morning, everyone," Ms. Howard said, clapping her hands twice to get their attention. "Today we're going to start with our math worksheets, and then we'll move on to our special science project about plants." The children buzzed with excitement. They had been growing bean plants in little paper cups by the windowsill for 2 weeks. Ms. Howard was about to hand out the worksheets when she noticed something unusual. Lily Mason was still standing beside her desk while all the other children had taken their seats. Lily was normally one of Ms. Howard's best students. She had soft brown hair that she wore in 2 neat braids. Her eyes were bright blue and usually full of curiosity. But today, her eyes looked different. They seemed worried, maybe even scared. "Lily, please take your seat so we can begin," Ms. Howard said kindly. Lily shifted her weight from one foot to the other. I don't want to sit down." A few children turned to look at her. Billy Jones snickered a little from 2 rows over. Ms. Howard gave him a stern look that quickly quieted him. "Everyone, please start on problem number 1, Ms. Howard instructed the class. She walked over to Lily's desk, bending down a little to speak quietly to the girl. "Is everything okay, Lily? Are you feeling sick?" Lily shook her head. "No, ma'am." "Then, please sit down so you can do your work with the rest of the class." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "I can't, Miss Howard. It hurts when I sit." Ms. Howard felt a small knot form in her stomach. In her 15 years of teaching, she had learned to pay attention when a child said something hurt. Sometimes it was nothing, a child wanting attention or trying to get out of classwork. But sometimes it was something serious. "What hurts, sweetheart?" Ms. Howard asked, keeping her voice calm and friendly. Lily didn't answer. She just stared at the floor. "Would you like to go see Nurse Collins?" Ms. Howard suggested. Lily shook her head quickly. "No, I'm fine. I'll sit down." She started to lower herself into her chair but winced before she was fully seated. Ms. Howard noticed the girl was wearing a thick, long-sleeved pink cardigan despite the warm spring day. All the other children were in t-shirts or light blouses. "Lily, are you too warm in that sweater? Would you like to take it off?" Again, Lily shook her head, this time more forcefully. "No, I'm fine." But Ms. Howard could see beads of sweat forming on the girl's forehead. Something wasn't right. "Class, please continue with problems 1 through 5. Sam, would you mind helping anyone who has questions?" Ms. Howard nodded to the classroom helper for the week, a responsible boy with glasses who beamed at being given the task. "Lily, can you come help me get the science materials ready?" This was a trick Ms. Howard sometimes used when she needed to talk to a student privately. Lily hesitated, but then nodded, and followed her teacher to the supply cabinet at the back of the classroom. Once they were away from the other students, Ms. Howard knelt down to Lily's level. "Lily, I can tell something is bothering you. I'm worried about you. Can you tell me what's wrong?" Lily's lower lip trembled. "I can't." "Did something happen? Did someone hurt you?" The little girl's eyes widened, and a single tear slipped down her cheek. "I'm not supposed to tell." The knot in Ms. Howard's stomach tightened. "Lily, you can always tell me anything. That's what I'm here for, to help you." Lily looked back at the classroom, where the other children were busy with their math problems. She leaned closer to Ms. Howard and whispered, "I have OEs." "Where are your OEs?" Ms. Howard asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Lily tugged nervously at her sweater sleeve. "Here, and on my back." "Can I see?" Lily looked terrified. "You won't tell?" "Lily, if someone is hurting you, I need to make sure you're safe. That's my job as your teacher." The little girl seemed to consider this. After a long moment, she slowly pushed up her right sleeve. Ms. Howard had to fight to keep her expression neutral as the girl's arm was revealed. Dark purple bruises wrapped around Lily's small arm, forming distinct finger-shaped marks. There were older yellowish bruises underneath the fresh ones. Miss Howard felt the blood drain from her face. She had seen similar marks before, early in her teaching career. She knew exactly what they meant. "Oh, Lily," she said softly. "How did this happen?" Lily quickly pulled her sleeve down. "I fell," she said automatically, as if she had practiced the answer. Ms. Howard placed a gentle hand on Lily's shoulder. "These don't look like falling bruises, sweetheart. Did someone grab your arm very hard?" Lily's eyes filled with fresh tears. "I'm not supposed to tell. He'll get mad." "Who will get mad, Lily?" But Lily pressed her lips together and shook her head. Ms. Howard knew she needed to follow school protocol. "Lily, I think we should go see Nurse Collins. She can help with your OEs." "No!" Lily's voice rose in panic. "Please, Ms. Howard, I'll be good. I'll sit down." "You're not in any trouble, Lily, I promise. But these bruises need to be looked at." Ms. Howard glanced at the clock. It was 9:20 a.m. The class aide, Mrs. Peters, would arrive at 9:30 for the science lesson. She just needed to keep the class occupied for 10 more minutes. "Class, I'm going to step out with Lily for a moment. Please continue with your math problems through number 10. When Mrs. Peters arrives, you can show her how well you've been working." Some of the children looked up curiously, but most kept working on their assignments. Ms. Howard took Lily's hand gently and led her out of the classroom. In the hallway, Lily looked up at her teacher with frightened eyes. "Am I in trouble?" "Not at all," Ms. Howard assured her. "I just want to make sure you're okay." As they walked toward the nurse's office, Ms. Howard's mind raced. Who had hurt this child? What other bruises was she hiding under her clothes? How long had this been going on? Lily had been such a bright, cheerful student until about 2 weeks ago, when Ms. Howard first noticed changes in her behavior. The girl had become quieter, less engaged in class activities. She had stopped playing with other children at recess, preferring to sit alone on a bench with a book. When they reached the nurse's office, Ms. Howard squeezed Lily's hand reassuringly. "Nurse Collins is very nice. She'll help make sure your OEs get better." Lily looked up at her teacher, her blue eyes full of trust and fear. "Will you stay with me?" Ms. Howard's heart ached. "Of course I will, Lily. I'll be right here with you the whole time." As they entered the nurse's office, Ms. Howard caught Nurse Collins's eye over Lily's head. The teacher gave a slight nod that communicated the seriousness of the situation. Nurse Collins, a kind woman with gray-streaked hair, smiled warmly at Lily. "Good morning, dear. What brings you to see me today?" Ms. Howard gently placed her hand on Lily's shoulder. "Lily has some bruises that we need you to look at." The color drained from Nurse Collins's face as Lily reluctantly showed her arm. Both women knew that what would happen next would change Lily's life forever. Nurse Betty Collins had been the school nurse at Pinewood Elementary for over 20 years. She had seen many things in her time: broken bones from playground falls, stomach bugs that swept through classrooms, and sadly, signs of abuse. As she gently examined Lily's arm, her experienced eyes noted the distinct finger-shaped bruises. Some were fresh and dark purple. Others were older, turning yellowish-green around the edges. "Lily, sweetheart, I'm going to need to check the rest of your arms and back, too. Is that okay?" Nurse Collins spoke softly. Lily looked at Ms. Howard with frightened eyes. "I'll be right here," Ms. Howard assured her. "Nurse Collins just wants to help." Lily nodded slowly. Nurse Collins helped her remove her pink cardigan. Both women tried to keep their faces neutral, but it was difficult. More bruises dotted Lily's upper arms. When Nurse Collins lifted the back of Lily's shirt, they saw several large bruises across her lower back. "Lily, can you tell us how you got these bruises?" Nurse Collins asked. The little girl stared at her shoes. "I fell down the stairs," she mumbled. Ms. Howard and Nurse Collins exchanged glances. The bruise pattern didn't match falling downstairs. "Has anyone been hurting you, Lily?" Ms. Howard asked gently. Lily's eyes filled with tears. "I'm not supposed to tell. He said it would be worse if I told." Nurse Collins took careful notes and photographs to document the injuries. Then she helped Lily put her cardigan back on. "Ms. Howard, would you mind staying with Lily while I make a phone call? Nurse Collins asked. Ms. Howard nodded. She knew what that meant. Nurse Collins was going to call the principal, and then they would need to contact Child Protective Services. It was the law. While Nurse Collins stepped into her small office, Ms. Howard sat beside Lily on the examination table. Am I in trouble? Lily asked again, her voice small. No, sweetheart. You haven't done anything wrong, Ms. Howard assured her. We just want to make sure you're safe. But he'll be mad if he finds out I told. Who will be mad, Lily? Lily twisted her hands in her lap. My mom's boyfriend, Rick. He watches me after school until Mom gets home from work. Ms. Howard felt a chill run through her. Does Rick hurt you often? Lily nodded slowly. When I make him mad, or when he drinks the smelly stuff. What makes him mad, Lily? If I'm too loud, or if I don't clean up my toys fast enough, or sometimes for no reason. A tear slipped down Lily's cheek. He said if I told anyone, they would take me away from my mom forever. Ms. Howard's heart broke for the frightened child. That's not true, Lily. You did the right thing by showing me your bruises. Now we can help make sure you don't get hurt anymore. Nurse Collins returned with Principal Frank Miller, a tall man with kind eyes and a serious expression. He had been principal at Pinewood for 5 years and was well respected by staff and students alike. Hello, Lily, he said gently. How are you feeling? Lily didn't answer. She kept her eyes down. I've called Child Protective Services, Principal Miller told Ms. Howard quietly. They're sending someone right away. I've also called Lily's mother. Ms. Howard felt a rush of concern. Do we know if the mother is involved in the abuse? We don't know anything yet, Principal Miller replied. We need to follow protocol. The real CPS worker will interview Lily, and they'll make the determination about what happens next. Ms. Howard nodded. She understood the process, but it didn't make it any easier to see Lily so frightened and vulnerable. Would you like some juice or a snack while we wait, Lily? Nurse Collins asked. Lily shook her head. How about a book? Ms. Howard suggested. I could go get one from our classroom. Lily finally looked up. Could I have the one about the lost puppy? We were reading it yesterday. Of course, Ms. Howard smiled. I'll be right back. Ms. Howard hurried to her classroom, where Mrs. Peters was now supervising the science activity. The children were measuring their bean plants and recording the growth in their science journals. Everything okay? Mrs. Peters asked quietly. It will be, Ms. Howard replied. She quickly found the book Lily had requested and returned to the nurse's office. When she got back, a woman in a neat blue suit was sitting across from Lily. She had a kind face and spoke in a gentle voice. Ms. Howard, this is Ms. Karen Powell. From Child Protective Services, Principal Miller explained. Ms. Powell smiled at Ms. Howard. Thank you for being alert and taking action. Too many teachers ignore the signs. I would never ignore something like this, Ms. Howard said firmly. She handed the book to Lily, who clutched it to her chest like a shield. Lily, Ms. Powell needs to ask you some questions, Principal Miller explained. Ms. Howard can stay with you if you'd like. Lily nodded, reaching for Ms. Howard's hand. Can you tell me about what happens when you're with Rick? Ms. Powell asked. Slowly, with many pauses and tears, Lily told her story. Rick had moved in with Lily and her mother 3 months ago. At first he had been nice, bringing Lily small gifts and taking her and her mother out for pizza. But then he lost his job. He started drinking more. He would get angry over small things. The first time he hurt Lily, he grabbed her arm when she was being too loud while he was watching TV. Her mother had been at work. Did you tell your mom what happened? Ms. Powell asked. Lily shook her head. Rick said she wouldn't believe me. He said she would choose him over me. Has he hurt your mom too? Ms. Powell asked. I don't think so, Lily said. But sometimes they yell at each other after I go to bed. Just as Lily finished telling her story, there was a commotion in the hallway. The door burst open, and a woman, with the same blue eyes as Lily, rushed in. Lily! What's going on? The school called and said there was an emergency, Susan Mason looked frantically from her daughter to the adults in the room. Lily burst into tears at the sight of her mother. "I'm sorry, Mommy, I didn't mean to tell." Susan Mason looked confused. "Tell what? What's happening?" Then she noticed Ms. Powell's identification badge. "Why is CPS here?" Principal Miller stepped forward. "Ms. Mason, I'm Frank Miller, the principal. Could we speak privately for a moment?" "No," Susan said firmly. "I want to know what's happening with my daughter. Right now," Ms. Powell spoke calmly. "Ms. Mason, your daughter has some concerning injuries that she says were caused by your boyfriend, Rick." Susan's face went white. "What? That's not possible." "Lily, can you show your mom your arms?" Ms. Howard asked gently. Hesitantly, Lily pushed up her sleeves. Susan gasped at the sight of the bruises. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Lily, did Rick do this to you?" Lily nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Why didn't you tell me?" Susan asked, her voice breaking. "He said you wouldn't believe me," Lily sobbed. "He said you would choose him." Susan rushed to her daughter and wrapped her in a careful hug. "Never. I would never choose anyone over you. Lily, never." Ms. Powell cleared her throat. "Ms. Mason, we need to discuss next steps. Your daughter's safety is our primary concern." Susan nodded, still holding Lily close. "What do I need to do?" "First, we need to file a police report," Ms. Powell explained. "And we'll need to create a safety plan to ensure Lily isn't exposed to further abuse." "He's never coming near her again," Susan said fiercely. "Never." As they discussed what would happen next, Ms. Howard watched Lily's face. The fear was still there, but there was something else now, too. Relief. The secret was out. Help was coming. Ms. Howard knew from experience that the road ahead would not be easy for Lily and her mother. There would be police interviews, maybe court appearances. There would be nightmares and tears. But there would also be healing. And it had started today, because Lily had been brave enough to show her bruises, and because someone had noticed and cared enough to act. The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. Susan Mason sat in Principal Miller's office filling out police reports with Officer Pete Johnson, a kind-faced policeman who specialized in cases involving children. Lily stayed in the nurse's office with Ms. Howard, coloring pictures and trying not to think about what would happen next. "Will I go to school tomorrow?" Lily asked Ms. Howard, her crayon pausing over the paper. "I'm not sure, sweetheart," Ms. Howard answered honestly. "That's something your mom and Ms. Powell will decide." Lily nodded and went back to her coloring. She was drawing a house with a bright yellow sun above it. There were 3 stick figures in front of the house, a tall one and 2 shorter ones. "Who's in your picture?" Ms. Howard asked. "That's me and that's Mom." Lily pointed to the 2 smaller figures. Then she hesitated. "And that's Grandma. She lives far away in Florida." Ms. Howard noticed there was no Rick in the picture. She wondered if that was significant. The door opened and Susan Mason walked in with Ms. Powell and Principal Miller. "Lily, sweetie, we're going to go now," Susan said, her eyes red from crying. "Where are we going?" Lily asked, putting down her crayon. "We're going to stay at Aunt Patty's house for a while," Susan explained. "Ms. Powell is going to drive us there." "What about Rick?" Lily asked, her voice small. Susan knelt in front of her daughter. "Rick won't be around anymore. The police are looking for him right now." "He's going to be so mad," Lily whispered. Susan took Lily's hands in hers. "Listen to me, Lily. What Rick did to you was very wrong. It was against the law. He had no right to hurt you ever for any reason. You didn't do anything wrong. This is not your fault." "But he said—" "Rick lied to you," Susan said firmly. "He lied because he knew what he was doing was wrong and he didn't want to get in trouble." Lily considered this for a moment. "So I'm not in trouble?" "No, sweetheart, you're not in trouble at all. In fact, you were very brave to show Ms. Howard your bruises. You did exactly the right thing." Ms. Howard smiled at Lily. "Your mom is right. You were very brave, Lily." Ms. Powell stepped forward. "We should get going. Officer Johnson wants to meet us at your sister's house to take some additional statements." Susan nodded and helped Lily gather her things. "Thank you," she said to Ms. Howard. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't noticed. I'm just glad Lily felt safe enough to show me, Ms. Howard replied. As they were about to leave, Principal Miller handed Susan a folder. Here's some information about counseling services for Lily. The school can help arrange sessions with our guidance counselor, Mr. Ross. He has experience working with children who have been through trauma. Susan took the folder gratefully. Thank you. I want to get Lily all the help she needs. Ms. Howard knelt to give Lily a gentle hug. I'll see you soon, okay? Your classmates and I will miss you if you're not here tomorrow. Lily hugged her back. Can I still do the bean plant project? Of course, Ms. Howard smiled. Your bean plant will be waiting for you when you come back. After Lily left with her mother and Ms. Powell, Ms. Howard returned to her classroom. The children were at lunch, now supervised by Mrs. Peters. Ms. Howard sat at her desk, trying to process everything that had happened that morning. She felt drained but also relieved that Lily would be safe now. Principal Miller stopped by during the lunch period. How are you holding up? He asked. I'm okay, Ms. Howard sighed. I just keep thinking about what might have happened if Lily hadn't shown me those bruises today. You did everything right, Nancy, Principal Miller assured her. You noticed something was wrong, you followed protocol, and you supported that child every step of the way. I just hope she'll be all right. Kids are resilient, Principal Miller said. With proper support and therapy, Lily has every chance of recovering from this. Ms. Howard nodded. What will happen with Rick? Officer Johnson is looking for him now. From what I understand, he'll be arrested and charged with child abuse. Susan has already filed for an emergency protective order for herself and Lily. Good, Ms. Howard said firmly. The next day, Lily didn't come to school. Ms. Howard explained to the class that Lily wasn't feeling well and would be back soon. She made sure to water Lily's bean plant and record its growth in Lily's science journal. 3 days passed with no sign of Lily. Ms. Howard called Susan Mason to check on them. We're staying with my sister for now, Susan explained. The police arrested Rick yesterday. He was hiding at a friend's house. How is Lily doing? Ms. Howard asked. She has nightmares, Susan said, her voice tired, and she's afraid to be alone. She sleeps in my bed now. But we saw a counselor yesterday and he said that's all normal after what she's been through. When do you think she'll be back at school? Maybe next week, Susan replied. The counselor thinks routine would be good for her, and she keeps asking about her bean plant. Ms. Howard smiled. I've been taking good care of it. It's growing taller every day. The following Monday, Lily returned to school. Ms. Howard had prepared the class, telling them that Lily had been sick and might need extra kindness and patience. When Lily walked into the classroom holding her mother's hand, several children called out happy greetings. Look at your bean plant, Lily. Sam pointed to the windowsill where the paper cups were lined up. Lily's plant was now over 6 inches, tall with several broad leaves spreading out. Lily smiled, a small, tentative smile, but a real one. She went to examine her plant while Susan spoke quietly with Ms. Howard. How has the weekend been? Ms. Howard asked. Better, Susan said. We're moving into a new apartment next weekend. I don't want to go back to our old place, too many bad memories. That sounds like a good fresh start, Ms. Howard agreed. And how are you doing? Susan sighed. I keep asking myself how I didn't see what was happening. I feel like I failed her. You're protecting her now, Ms. Howard said gently. That's what matters. Susan nodded. The court date is set for next month. The prosecutor says with Lily's testimony and the photos of her injuries, Rick will likely go to jail for at least a few years. Will Lily have to testify in court? They're going to let her give her testimony by video so she doesn't have to see Rick again, Susan explained. Her counselor is helping prepare her for that. Across the room, Lily was showing Billy Jones how tall her bean plant had grown. Billy, who had snickered at Lily a week ago, was now listening attentively as she explained how to measure the plant correctly. She seems to be doing well today, Ms. Howard observed. She was excited to come back, Susan smiled. She talked about you all weekend, about how you helped her. Ms. Howard felt tears prick at her eyes. I'm just glad I was there when she needed someone. Susan squeezed Ms. Howard's hand. You were more than just there. You noticed. You cared. You acted. Not everyone would have done that. As Susan left, Lily took her seat at her desk. She didn't wince or hesitate this time. Her bruises were healing. There would be more challenges ahead: the court case, the move to a new home, the ongoing therapy sessions. But for now, Lily was back in her classroom measuring her bean plant and smiling at her friends. It was a good start. The weeks that followed were filled with changes for Lily and her mother. They moved into a small but bright apartment on the other side of town. Lily got a new bedroom with yellow walls and a window that looked out on a playground. Susan hung fairy lights around Lily's bed to keep the nightmares away. The light helps me be brave, Lily told Ms. Howard one morning before class. Mom says bad things can't hide in the light. Ms. Howard smiled. Your mom is very wise. Lily nodded solemnly. She cries sometimes when she thinks I'm sleeping, but she says we're going to be okay. And what do you think? Ms. Howard asked gently. Lily thought for a moment. I think we will be, but sometimes I still get scared. That's normal, Lily. When scary things happen, it takes time not to feel scared anymore. Lily seemed to accept this. She went to her desk and took out her science journal. The bean plants had grown so tall now that Ms. Howard had moved them to larger cups. Some were starting to produce tiny bean pods. The children were fascinated by the process. During science time, Mr. Ross, the school guidance counselor, came to visit the class. He was a friendly man with a round face and a gentle voice. Twice a week, Lily went to his office to talk and play special games that helped her express her feelings. Good morning, everyone, Mr. Ross greeted the class. I'm here to talk about a special project we're starting at Pinewood Elementary. The children looked up curiously. It's called the Brave Hearts Club, Mr. Ross explained. It's for kids who have gone through tough times and shown courage. Lily sat up straighter in her seat. Being brave doesn't mean you're never scared, Mr. Ross continued. It means you do what's right even when you are scared. Ms. Howard watched Lily's face as Mr. Ross spoke. The little girl was listening intently. Sometimes kids get hurt by adults who should be taking care of them, Mr. Ross said carefully. When that happens, it takes a lot of courage to tell someone and get help. Some of the children shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Billy Jones raised his hand. Yes, Billy? Mr. Ross acknowledged him. Us. My cousin had to go live with his grandma because his dad hurt him, Billy said. Was he brave for telling? Yes, Billy. That was very brave of your cousin. Mr. Ross nodded. It's never easy to tell that kind of secret. Another hand went up. It was Sam, the class helper. What if you see someone getting hurt but you don't tell because you're scared? Sam asked. Mr. Ross approached Sam's desk. That's a really good question. It's natural to feel scared in that situation, but it's important to remember that telling a trusted adult can help stop the hurt. Lily raised her hand next. Ms. Howard held her breath. Yes, Lily? Mr. Ross smiled. I told Ms. Howard when Rick hurt me, Lily said clearly. And now he can't hurt me anymore. The classroom went quiet. Ms. Howard felt tears prick at her eyes. This was the first time Lily had spoken openly about what happened. Mr. Ross nodded, encouragingly. That was incredibly brave, Lily. You're exactly the kind of person the Brave Hearts Club is for. After Mr. Ross left, the class was buzzing with quiet conversation. Ms. Howard noticed several children stopping by Lily's desk to talk to her. There were no snickers or whispers behind hands. Instead, there was a new respect in the way they treated their classmate. At lunchtime, Ms. Howard found Mr. Ross in the teacher's lounge. Thank you for what you did today, she told him. I think it really helped Lily. Mr. Ross nodded. Kids like Lily often feel alone in their experience. The Brave Hearts Club gives them a chance to connect with others who understand. Will you have regular meetings? Once a week during lunch, Mr. Ross explained. We'll do art projects, play games, and just talk. The goal is to help them feel empowered rather than victimized. That sounds wonderful, Ms. Howard said sincerely. The next big challenge came the following week. Lily had to record her testimony for the court case against Rick. Susan took her out of school for the day. When they returned the next morning, Lily looked tired but proud. "How did it go?" Ms. Howard asked Susan quietly while Lily got settled. At her desk. "It was hard," Susan admitted. She had to talk about everything Rick did, and they recorded it all on video. But she did so well, Nancy. She was so brave. Did she have to see Rick? Susan shook her head. No, thank goodness. He wasn't in the room. Just Lily, me, the prosecutor, and a victim advocate who specializes in working with children. What happens next? We wait for the court date. The prosecutor thinks Rick might take a plea deal to avoid a trial, especially now that they have Lily's testimony. Over the next few weeks, Lily continued to make progress. Her nightmares became less frequent. She started playing at recess again instead of sitting alone. The Brave Hearts Club met every Wednesday during lunch, and Lily never missed a meeting. One day in early May, almost a month after Rick's arrest, Lily came to school bubbling with excitement. "Guess what, Ms. Howard?" she said as soon as she entered the classroom. "Rick is going to jail for 3 years, and he can never come near me or Mom again, even after he gets out." "That's wonderful news, Lily," Ms. Howard said warmly. "How do you feel about it?" "Happy," Lily said firmly. "And safe." That afternoon, the class harvested their bean plants. Each child carefully collected the bean pods their plant had produced. Ms. Howard helped them open the pods to find the tiny beans. Inside, "We can plant these beans next year and grow new plants," she explained. "That's how nature works. Things grow, produce seeds, and then those seeds grow into new plants." Lily examined the beans in her palm. "It's like starting over," she said, thoughtfully. "In a way, yes," Ms. Howard agreed. "It's a new beginning." After school that day, Susan came to pick up Lily as usual. She looked more rested than she had in weeks. "We're going to visit my mother in Florida this summer," she told Ms. Howard. "I think the change of scenery will be good for both of us." "That sounds lovely," Ms. Howard smiled. "Lily mentioned your mother before. They seem close." "Mom has been amazing through all this," Susan said. "She wanted us to move to Florida permanently, but I think it's important for Lily to stay here with her school and her friends and her support system." Ms. Howard nodded. "Stability is important after trauma, and Lily has been doing so well here. She talks about you all the time, you know," Susan said. "You're her hero." Ms. Howard felt her cheeks warm. "I just did what any teacher would do." Susan shook her head. "Not every teacher would have noticed. Not every teacher would have acted. You changed our lives, Nancy." Across the playground, Lily was showing some classmates the beans she had harvested. Her face was animated as she explained something, gesturing with her hands. The bruises on her arms had faded completely now. She looked like any other happy 8-year-old. "She's going to be okay, isn't she?" Susan asked, following Ms. Howard's gaze. "Yes," Ms. Howard said confidently. "With your love and support and with the help she's getting, Lily is going to be just fine." As they watched, Lily looked up and waved at them. The smile she gave them was bright and genuine. The smile of a child who knew she was safe, who knew she was loved, who knew she was brave. The final weeks of the school year flew by quickly. The children in Ms. Howard's class completed their last assignments and prepared for their move to 4th grade. Lily continued to thrive. She kept the beans from her plant in a small jar on her desk at home, ready to plant them in the fall. On the last day of school, Ms. Howard gave each student a certificate highlighting something special about them. When she called Lily to the front of the classroom, she handed her a certificate that read, "Most Courageous Student." "Lily has shown us all what true bravery looks like," Ms. Howard told the class. "She faced something scary and difficult, but she didn't let it stop her from growing and learning." Lily's cheeks turned pink with pride as her classmates clapped for her. She clutched her certificate to her chest and smiled at Ms. Howard. "Thank you," she whispered. Later that day, as the children were gathering their belongings and saying goodbye for the summer, Susan arrived with a small gift bag for Ms. Howard. "It's just something small," Susan said, handing it to the teacher. "But Lily and I wanted you to have it."
Inside the bag was a beautiful silver bracelet with a small heart charm. Engraved on the back of the charm were the words, "Thank you for
noticing." Ms. Howard felt tears spring to her eyes. "This is beautiful," she said. "Thank you both." "We start family therapy next week," Susan told Ms. Howard. "The counselor thinks it will help us process everything together." "That sounds like a good idea," Ms. Howard said. "And we're still going to visit my mother in Florida," Susan added. "We leave next Tuesday." "I hope you have a wonderful time," Ms. Howard smiled. Lily tugged at her mother's sleeve. "Can Ms. Howard come visit us sometime?" she asked. Susan laughed. "I'm sure Ms. Howard has her own vacation plans, sweetie." "Actually, I'll be here for most of the summer," Ms. Howard said. "I teach summer school in July." "Maybe we could have you over for dinner when we get back from Florida," Susan suggested. "If you'd like." "I'd love that," Ms. Howard replied. Lily gave Ms. Howard a big hug before leaving. "See you later, alligator," she said with a grin. "After a while, crocodile," Ms. Howard responded, their usual goodbye. Summer passed quickly. Ms. Howard taught summer school, took a short trip to the mountains, and prepared for her new class of third graders. In mid-August, she received a postcard from Florida with a picture of a beach at sunset. On the back, in careful child's handwriting, was a note from Lily. "Dear Ms. Howard, Florida is very hot but fun. I went swimming in the ocean and saw a dolphin. Grandma says I'm growing like a bean plant. See you soon. Love, Lily." Ms. Howard smiled and put the postcard on her refrigerator. A week before the new school year began, Susan called to invite Ms. Howard for dinner. When Ms. Howard arrived at their apartment, she was amazed by the transformation. The small space was now fully decorated and homey, with colorful curtains and family photos on the walls. "You've made it so lovely," Ms. Howard said, as Susan welcomed her in. "It finally feels like home," Susan agreed. "Lily, Ms. Howard is here." Lily came running from her bedroom. Her hair was longer now and she had a deep summer tan, but the biggest change was in her eyes. They were bright and carefree without the shadows of fear that had been there before. "Ms. Howard, come see my room. I planted the beans from my school plant in a pot on my windowsill." Ms. Howard followed Lily to her cheerful yellow bedroom. Sure enough, on the windowsill sat a clay pot with several small bean plants sprouting from the soil. "They're growing so well," Ms. Howard said admiringly. "Mom says they're like me. They just needed a safe place to grow," Lily explained. Dinner was delicious. Susan had made lasagna, salad, and garlic bread. As they ate, Lily chattered about her Florida trip, the sandcastles she had built, and the seashells she had collected. "How has the therapy been going?" Ms. Howard asked Susan quietly when Lily went to get her seashell collection to show off. "Really good," Susan said. "It's been hard work but worth it. Lily still has bad days sometimes, but they're getting fewer and farther between." "And how are you doing?" Susan smiled. "Better. I've joined a support group for parents of children who have experienced trauma. It helps to talk to other people who understand." "I'm so glad," Ms. Howard said sincerely. "I've also started dating someone new," Susan admitted, lowering her voice. "Very slowly and carefully. He's a single dad I met through the support group. He hasn't met Lily yet. I want to be absolutely sure before I introduce them." "That sounds very wise." Ms. Howard nodded. Lily returned with a box of seashells, eager to show Ms. Howard each one and explain where she had found it. After dessert, homemade chocolate chip cookies, Lily asked if they could play a board game together. The three of them spent a pleasant hour playing Candyland and laughing. As the evening wound down, Susan made coffee for herself and Ms. Howard while Lily got ready for bed. "I wanted to tell you something," Susan said, sitting across from Ms. Howard at the kitchen table. "I've decided to go back to school to become a social worker." "Really? That's wonderful," Ms. Howard exclaimed. Susan nodded. "I've been working with so many amazing support professionals through all of this. Social workers, counselors, victim advocates. They've changed our lives. I want to do that for other families." "You'll be excellent at it," Ms. Howard said, warmly. "It will take time," Susan acknowledged. I'll still keep my job at the bank and take night classes. But it feels right, like something good coming from all the bad we went through. Lily called from her bedroom, asking for Ms. Howard to come say goodnight. Ms. Howard found the little girl tucked into bed, surrounded by her fairy lights.
"Thank you for coming to dinner," Lily said sleepily. "Thank you for inviting me," Ms. Howard replied. "I had a wonderful time." "I'm going to be in 4th grade," Lily said proudly. "Ms. Bell's class." "Ms. Bell is a wonderful teacher," Ms. Howard
Assured her. You'll have a great year. I'm not scared anymore, Lily said suddenly. About Rick, I mean. Mom says he's far away in jail and he can't hurt us anymore. That's right. Ms. Howard nodded. And even if I do get scared sometimes, that's okay too. Lily continued, reciting what she had clearly learned in therapy. Because being brave doesn't mean never being scared. It means doing what's right even when you are scared. Ms. Howard smiled, recognizing Mr. Ross's words from the Brave Hearts Club. That's absolutely right, Lily. Mom says you were brave too, Lily said. She says lots of people saw my bruises before, but they didn't say anything. You did. Ms. Howard swallowed hard. I care about you, Lily. I couldn't let you keep getting hurt. I'm going to be a teacher when I grow up, Lily declared. Just like you. So I can help kids too. You'll be a wonderful teacher, Ms. Howard said, her heart full. As she left the apartment later that evening, Susan walked her to her car. I don't know if I've ever properly thanked you, Susan said. You saved my daughter. You saved us both, really. You're the one doing all the hard work, Ms. Howard pointed out. You're the one who believed Lily, who got her help, who's building a new life for both of you. But you were the first link in that chain, Susan said. If you hadn't noticed, if you hadn't cared enough to act. She didn't need to finish the sentence. They both knew what might have happened. Ms. Howard drove home that night with a full heart. In her 15 years of teaching, she had taught hundreds of children. She had helped them learn to read, to write, to understand the world around them. But with Lily, she had done something even more important. She had noticed a child in pain. She had acted. She had made a difference. As teachers, everywhere know, sometimes the most important lessons have nothing to do with books or tests. Sometimes they're about courage, compassion, and the power of simply paying attention to a child who cannot sit down in class because her arms and back are covered in bruises. Sometimes they're about being the one adult who notices, who cares, who acts. For Lily Mason, that one adult had been Ms. Nancy Howard, and it had made all the difference.